What's up everybody, we're back with another raid guide, and today we're taking a look at the Jadefire Masters encounter. So I'll be going over all the abilities and mechanics as well as our overall strat for this fight. I just want to start off by saying this encounter is the exact same for both the Horde and the Alliance. Nothing changes mechanically. So this is a two-phase encounter and you will fight two boss enemies. There's two intermissions that occur before you reach the final phase, and the bosses have their own health pools. So let's start off with both of the bosses' individual abilities. First out is Mestra, the monk. She has Whirling Jade Storm. Every now and then the boss will sheet torpedo to a far side of the room away from the tank and cast Whirling Jade Storm. It deals raid-wide ticking damage, and the cast will end when the boss is hit by a melee ability. We just assigned a warrior here to charge or heroic leap and charge the boss as soon as this happened. There's also the multi-sided strike. The boss knocks the tank up in the air and a six-sided grid appears, which is kind of a minigame if you will. Yay! Images will appear one at a time in quick succession. These images will then fly into the tank one at a time in the order they spawn. You need to make sure your character is faced towards whichever image is about to charge you and you'll be fine. If you aren't facing the image, you'll take a large amount of damage. After all the images have smacked you, you'll return to the ground and gain the tested debuff. 40-sec debuff causing you to take 100% increased physical damage. So as soon as you're down, make sure to tank swap so you don't tank the monk with that debuff. And Spirits of Xuen, or Sven as we say. Summons a tiger ad that chases down a random raid member, uses Tiger Paw which deals around 36k damage to the fixed target, and Pounce which is pounces to a spot in the room, dealing 35k damage to everyone within 5 yards. This ad is fully CCable and stunnable, so make sure to stun, grip, Ring of Peace, and make sure to kill it off fast. And lastly, Harmonious Spirits. If the monk has higher percent HP than the other boss, the mage, the monk deals extra damage. This scales the higher the HP difference is, meaning always nuke the monk a bit more. He uses Fireball, deals moderate amount of damage to the current tank, and causes Rising Flames debuff. A ticking dot that lasts 15 seconds and it also stacks. When Rising Flame ends, it causes Burnout. It's a raid-wide AoE damage and it scales up based on the amount of stacks of Rising Flame that tank has. So the more stacks the tank has, the bigger the boom. And it wouldn't be a fire mage without a good old Pyroblast mechanic. So Pyroblast deals around 150k to the tank plus a 500k dot. It can and needs to be interrupted. The boss gains Fire Shield at the beginning of the cast, absorbs 175k damage and prevents interrupts. Once the shield breaks, you can interrupt the pyrocast, so yeah, good old Pyroblast. And Searing Embers places dots on random enemies around 12k per sec for 10 seconds. If you do not dispel it, Unleashed Embers occurs, dealing 52k to the whole raid, so dispel them. And Magma Traps places fire traps on the ground. When triggered, anyone within 6 yards takes around 100k damage and is knocked into the air. Players taking subsequent Magma Traps take 100% increased damage from them. On top of this, they also have combined abilities or powers, if you will. Their power or energy gain is tied to the boss's combined HP pools, so it's not on a set timer, if you will. The higher your raid DPS, the faster they gain energy, or so it seems at least. So at 30 energy, the mage uses Living Bomb, but during this phase bosses will continue to cast all their normal abilities from before. But 2 Living Bombs spawn around the room, each with a different amount of HP, and they all cast Explosion. Explosion deals a moderate amount of damage to the raid per bomb that is alive on a 10-second cast, and they will chain cast it until they are dead. All of the Living Bombs fire a laser as well, which spins around the Living Bomb. It deals a high amount of damage to anyone hit, so just don't stand in the laser beam. And on top of this, the monk uses Chiji's Song, shrouds the living bombs in mist, or pretty much a rogue's smoke bomb. If inside the mist, you can target everything in the mist to heal and DPS. If outside the mist, you cannot interact with anything inside the mist. This phase ends when both living bombs are dead. And at 60 power, you get a Flash of Hostility. Players are put on one side of the room, bosses on the other side, and have a nice little ice wall in front of them. A maze of Ring of Peace will appear between you and the ice wall, and these rings works as any Ring of Peace. You need to run around the rings to reach the other side and break the ice wall. The ice wall has one weak point that can be attacked to begin with. If this weak point is somewhere stupid, like in the middle of a Ring of Peace for some reason, you can carry over a Force Orb to create an additional weak point to attack. Force orbs are green orbs, they'll be on the ground in the maze, just click it, pick it up, yeah, more orbs. During this maze Mansory, the mage will cast Phoenix Strike, red swirls on the ground, just try to avoid them. When you made it across the maze, nuke down a weak point in the ice wall, tag the boss, and the intermission ends, and it's back to good old phase 1 again. And lastly, at 100 power, the monk transforms into a dragon and the mage transforms into a phoenix, and the bosses start using a new set of abilities. The monk uses Dragon Breath, it's a frontal cone, deals a lot of damage, and leaves patches of fire on the ground, which deals ticking damage if you stand in it. And Multi-Sided Strike, the tank mechanic from phase 1, this now sends the majority of the raid into the minigame. Same thing here though, face the image that is about to charge you and you'll be fine. And the mage uses Blazing Phoenix, deals ticking damage to the entire raid every 3 seconds for the rest of the fight. And Searing Peck pecks the current target, the tank, dealing fire damage and applying a stack of Rising Flames. So again, like the fireball, bigger boom the more stacks you have when it expires. So how do we deal with all of this? First of all, put all your DPS on the monk boss. You want her to have less HP than the other boss and killing her off before the mage has no down part to it. So nuke monk, cleave the mage. But make sure to swap to the mage during Pyroblast to get the shield down. Keep the bosses stacked as much as possible to make cleaving easier, and as soon as the monk jumps away, have someone get to it fast like a warrior to hit it to stop the AoE. When the mage teleports away to cast Pyroblast, move the raid to wherever he is and continue on as usual, just make sure to nuke down the shield and interrupt the Pyroblast. You want to tank swap at around 5 or 6 stack of the fireball debuff, or always after the Multi-Sided Strike minigame due to the debuff you get. At this point, the mage tank might need to tank a bit longer so you get like 10 stacks or more from the fireball, but that's fine. We had our range stay loosely stacked near the boss but not directly in melee. There's also a lot of raid damage, so this will help your healers out a lot, and this will ensure that Mass Dispel can be used to remove all of the Searing Embers debuff if you have priests. The only person not stacked should be the player who gets fixated by the Spirit of Zuen when it spawns. This player should move about 10 yards away from the raid and use defensive cooldowns if possible when the ad is not stunned. The magma traps spawn roughly every 20 seconds. Rogues can Cloak of Shadow clear all of them. You can also use a gateway to trigger 3 of them instantly with an immunity, or just use slow fall or disengage and pick them off one by one. For the living bomb phase at 30 power, as soon as they spawn we had the entire raid moved to 1, nuke it down and simply moved on to the next one. Remember, all boss abilities continue during this phase, so the raid needs to remain stacked on top of the same bomb so healers can heal and dispel you. Make sure to use at least 1 major healing cooldown for when the first bomb dies. Make sure that you dodge the lasers that spin around the living bomb, and it's pretty small and can be hard to see, but it does hurt like hell. For the maze phase, 60 power, not much to say, get across the maze, avoid red swirls on the ground, nuke weak point and tag boss. If needed, bring a force orb over to create another weak point in the ice wall. Things like Death's Advance and Bubble works, you can just run through them, or you can disengage over or jump over as a demon hunter. And for the burn phase at a 100 power, we had our raids stay stacked in the middle of the room. The tank who's currently tanking the dragon might need to kite in a small circle around the raid due to the fires dropping on the ground. Just try and move as slow as possible or as little as possible when you're doing this. If you get the minigame where everyone gets thrown up into the air, just turn your character to face whichever image is lit up. We didn't actually get this when we killed the boss. I assume that's because we killed the monk so fast in that phase. Tanks will need to swap based on stacks of Rising Flame, just like in phase 1. Hard to give you an exact number, depends on how many your healers can handle, but anything between 5 and 8 should be fine. Other than that, just continue nuking the monk and cleave off on the mage. The monk will die a lot faster than the mage, and then you only have to deal with the phoenix during the last phase. You can use Bloodlust on pull or during the last phase. We used it on pull and that worked out great for us at least. And I think that pretty much covers everything. If you have any questions at all, make sure to hit me up in the comments below. Don't forget to check out my Patreon if you'd like to support my work. And as always, if you like these kind of videos, make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave me a like and ring that notification bell. It really helps me out. Thanks for watching and I will see you next time.